Have you ever wondered what actually makes bourbon bourbon? There are several rules that must be followed in order for a whiskey to be called a bourbon. In this video, I'm going to take you on a journey through those rules using the ABCs. So sit back, relax, grab a pour of your favorite bourbon, and let's get started. The A in the ABCs of bourbon stands for America, because bourbon is strictly an American spirit. It can't be made anywhere else in the world. And despite the myth that we busted in this episode here, it doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. It can be made in any one of the 50 states here in the United States. The B stands for barrels. One of the key factors that sets bourbon apart from other whiskeys is that bourbon must be aged in a brand new charred oak container. Notice I didn't say the word barrel. That's because the TTB in their law says it has to be a brand new charred oak container. Well, barrel is a container, and most distilleries go that route, but some use vats and some use other charred oak containers that are wide open to help age their whiskey. But for the most part, distilleries just use barrels. On top of that, contrary to popular belief, there's actually no age limit to the amount of time bourbon has to be in the barrel, which we'll touch on in a later podcast or a later episode. C stands for corn. Bourbon, just like any other beverage that we've consumed, comes from a list of ingredients, and that list of ingredients is called the mash bill. But in order for it to be bourbon, it must be 51% corn or more. So at least 51% of that mash bill has to be from the grain corn. Now, there's other grains that go into bourbon: rye, malted barley, and some even use oats and grain, and we'll dive into that in a later session. But just know, in order for it to be bourbon, at least more than half of that mash bill has to be corn. D stands for distillation proof. In order for it to be called bourbon, it cannot be higher than 160 off the still, which is right at 80% ABV. Now, other whiskeys can get as high as 90%, but they're not bourbon. In order for it to be called bourbon, it has to be less than 160. The E stands for entry proof. When entering the barrel, that liquid, that new make, cannot be any higher than 125 proof, which is 62.5% ABV. And in order to get to that mark, distilleries use water to cut that down, or in this case, proof it down to the point that they want to put it in the barrel. Now, they don't have to put it in at 125. Some choose to do it even lower than that, and we'll touch on that topic later on. F stands for fill proof. Just like D and E, F is all about proof, but in this case, it's about filling the bottle. Anything less than 40% ABV is not considered bourbon. That means all bourbons have to be 80 proof or higher. Now, it can be even higher than that, 100, 125. Those are called bottle and bonds or barrel proof, and we even have full proof, and we'll dive into that later on. But just know, if it's less than 80 proof, it's not considered bourbon. And we've made it to the last letter, G, genuine. And that means that everything that goes into the bottle has to be genuinely bourbon or water. And that's just so they can proof it down. But there cannot be any coloring, flavoring, or blended material other than bourbon that goes into the bottle in order for it to be called bourbon. And that's a wrap on Bourbon 101, the ABCs. Now, there's still a bunch of different laws, a bunch of different details that we need to dive into, and we'll get to those in later videos. But we hope that you learned something from our video today, and if so, comment it below. We'd love to hear what we taught you, and we hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button or like button below. As always, the biggest and most important thing about bourbon is enjoying it the way you want to. Whether that's neat in a Glencairn, on ice, in a cocktail, but the best part is sharing it with friends and enjoying it. So, until next time, cheers, friends.